Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Preps, presented by Mascot Media. I'm Blair Cartwright. This is Brad Stamps, boys basketball coach at Fayetteville High School. And Coach, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, Blair. How about yourself?
Doing well. Now, we were discussing before we started, coming off a dead period that the Arkansas Activities Association mandates for 2 weeks. How important is that dead period?
Oh, I think it's really important. I think really if you polled all of the coaches, I would think that they would probably even extend it maybe another week or two. It just allows, the kids to get away. Parents can pre-plan a vacation. A lot of our kids are, playing AAU basketball. And so, they get a break in the action. And I think it's good. I think it's good for us as coaches to get away and be with our families and reflect a little bit before you get back in. I think maybe Blair 20, 30 years ago, it was you wondered how we all survived it without it, of just the grind and going at it every day. And I think burnout occurs. I think kids get disinterested, and so I think it's good. We got back in the gym yesterday with our guys after a break, and it was good to see them again and get going again.
Now, you mentioned you getting back in the gym. It's become kind of not necessarily a year round thing, but there's always something going on. What are y'all working on in the summer?
Yeah, our summer, the way it breaks down even prior to the dead period is we try to do as many things with our team as far as competitions in the month of June. And we go to two or three team camps. We go to a showcase event. We have our little kids camp, and then when the dead period hits, we get away, and then when we come back, July up until the start of school is 3 days of weights, and those same 3 days we have an hour of skill work, and so we're not doing any team, I would say practices other than just working on our bodies and our skill work.
So this is the time of year where fundamentals really get emphasized a lot,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah, for sure. And you challenge your kids to, if you want to shoot it better, get in the gym and shoot. If you want to, be a better ball handler, get in the gym and work on it. And so our staff does a really good job of, not wearing them out with that stuff, but at least opening the door and allowing them to come in and do some things. And so it's been good. The turnout yesterday was really good. We got a couple of guys that are gone this week at AAU events, but for the most part, kids like the opportunity to come in a more relaxed setting, and just get after it.
You mentioned the kids camp. It's important for you, I know, to give back to the community and get the young kids involved, and that's a great way to do it. How did that get started?
Yeah, it started a long time ago. I remember, being a teenage kid and being able to come to Fayetteville's basketball camp. And it's really the same feeling I had then as a kid is the same feeling I have now as, an old man is, just the pride, of all the campers are, now are families that I grew up with that are dropping their kid off, or just those connections of the community are big. And we put on a good camp. We really do. It's a 4 day week camp, 2 hours a day for each grade. And we really, our staff is hands on, but really the most important part about that is our players get involved, and, they're giving back to the community and they're giving back to these kids. And it's always fun to see, those kids connect with our players, because that's their coach for the week. They hear that voice, they get to know those young men, and then they come to our games and they have a hero, just like I did when I was a kid, to look up to and go watch.
Who was your hero when you were growing up?
I had a lot of them, but when I was coming up, it was the as a kid in the '70s, the late '70s. You had the Trumbos, you had the Trey Trumbo, the Tyler Trumbo group, you had the Kyle Adams and the Trevor Levy and the Scott Blackwell group. Scott Blackwell is going into our Hall of Greats next week. Well deserved. Just somebody that I looked up to. By the time I got to the high school, we were hearing stories daily about all these guys. Like if you want to be, a really good player, do what Scott Blackwell did. He brought his lunch and he was here all day long and he didn't leave the gym and he would eat his lunch in the gym and continued to skills. And so, we're those stories have lasted forever and they left a legacy and a mark on all of us. And so we want our players to understand, that the importance of, people are going to come watch you play. And then when you graduate, they want you to be a valuable part of our community. And so that's what we're looking for.
Awesome. When you mentioned you were a member of those camps when you were younger, how did the coaching aspect of your career journey get started? When did you first think, hey, coaching might be something I want to do? And then how did you go about starting your coaching journey?
Yeah, for sure. And it never gets old talking about it because it means so much. But, that was at a time in my life where I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was dabbling in and out of some college courses and really didn't have a path. I thought I wanted to go into business. I thought I wanted to do real estate at one time. And so I got in and got a business management degree. And, really, there wasn't an open door as far as I would say a job opportunity with that. And it wasn't like I was just, knocking down the door trying to find one at that point in my life either. And I just remember running into my mentor, my life coach, Coach Kyle Adams, was at Woodland Junior High. He was my ninth grade coach, and we just got in a conversation about life and what all was going on with me, and said, I'm fixing to start on the job hunt. And he said, well, if you can't find anything, maybe you can come help me and be a volunteer. And I said, well, I'll do that, as I'm looking. And so I got in there, was taking some night classes in college at John Brown, trying to finish my degree, and really just fell in love with it. He gave me the eighth grade. At that time, it was seventh, eighth, and ninth were our junior high models. And so he gave me the eighth grade, and I assisted him on the ninth grade. And it didn't take me long, Blair, to figure out that this is what I wanted to do. So that started my journey at Woodland Junior High years ago.
Awesome. And then from there, um, how
Yeah,
did you
yeah.
end up getting to be a head coach?
Yeah, so there were several years there at Woodland, and then once I finished my degree, there was an opportunity up at the high school, and Coach Gibhart was the head coach then, and so he offered me a position as an assistant. I was with him for a few years, and then Shiloh Christian opened up. At that time, they were dominating in football and weren't very successful in basketball, and so my inner circle was telling me not to do it. Don't go to a place where it's football driven and you can't win in basketball. And so, that just drove me even more to, my first head coaching job. You're walking into an opportunity where the pressure isn't great to succeed right away. But it's also an opportunity to prove, hey, we can do this and we'll show you we can do this. And so I don't, there may have been a little arrogance there or ego, but we just felt like, we can win here. And so luckily I had a group of families that wanted a basketball program there, and they got behind us. And, within 4 years, me as my first head coaching job, we won 7 games year one, 17 the second, 24 the third, and 28 the fourth, and went to back-to-back Final Fours, and a lot of conference championships and district championships. And so that opened many doors. Not that I was wanting to leave because they treated me really well at Shiloh, but it opened up some doors to get back to the level we're on now. And I spent 2 years at Harbor as Eric Burnett's assistant. He was a brother and an AAU teammate of mine, and we had that connection. And then Springdale came calling, and I was there for 6 years as a head coach. We went to a state final in year 5 and got beat by a really good North Little Rock team. And then my mentor, it's full circle. My mentor, Kyle Adams, was at the high school that now, and he needed an assistant coach. Called me and offered me the assistant coaching job, and I don't think I would have taken the job going from a head coach and coming off a state championship game and going back to being an assistant if it had to been two reasons: one, my alma mater, and two, my mentor. And so I served him for 4 years as an assistant, and then now I'm fixing to start year 8 as a head coach at Fayetteville High.
Awesome. And I know it means a lot to you to coach at Fayetteville, having played there. Can you describe the feeling? I mean, you probably still get goosebumps every now and then when you think about it, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Blair, you get caught up sometimes of, we all, there's all parts of our job that we wish maybe could be better or different but at the end of the day, when you look at it, it's a blessing. And it is, it's a special place, even though it's changed a lot, whether that means district admin on all levels or whether that just means the culture of the building. Um, in all aspects, it's changed. It's not the same as it was when I played there, but it's still, one community, one school. It means a lot to a lot of people still. And so I want to make sure, every day that we're checking off the boxes and doing what we should, because the program is not my program; it's our program. And a lot of the guys before me did a really good job of making sure that you understood what the standard is. And it's harder now to live up to, maybe that standard because of the transfers and the stuff that's out there in youth sports. And but at the end of the day, you build relationships with kids at our kids camp, like we talked about, and then you watch them grow and go through our feeder systems at Woodland and Ramey and our middle school, model, and then they eventually get to us, and you hope by then you have an established relationship that means something to families, and you coach them up.
That's, to me, that's the great thing about high school sports. It brings communities together. You know, it, everybody has a focus. And you mentioned Fayetteville with the one high school, as opposed to everybody else has two.
Yeah.
But there's a great community feeling, and sometimes I think we take that for granted, and that's the thing that makes high school sports so unique, isn't it? That it can just bring a community together.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think, there's we talk to our players all the time in the preseason about, look, like everywhere you go in our community, and we just used the example of Sonic the other day. Our guys will go through Sonic, the drive through, and one of us was telling us the other day that somebody knocked on their window, saw him wearing a Fayetteville basketball shirt, and was like, "Hey, I played for Fayetteville, and when do y'all play? When's your season?" And just questioning them, and they thought that was odd, and I was like, "No, that's Fayetteville. People care." And it's every night, when we play on Tuesday and Friday nights, when we get into conference play, especially, is, those stands are going to be filled with people who either went to Fayetteville, they're a legacy, part of a legacy family, a long lasting legacy family, um, of their family members going to Fayetteville, and it still means a great deal to them. And we want to make sure that, we're putting a good product on the floor, something that they can be proud of. And it works together. We want to partner with not only our parents of raising their child up, but we also want to partner with our community and make sure that we're active members of it because it's been so good to us.
One of the great things I think about your arena is when you walk in, you see from the fan entrance, you see all the trophies and the history. And it's like you mentioned earlier, that's a pretty big legacy to live up to, but it's nice that you have that because there is the standard and it lets everybody know. But that's a lot of pressure too to live up to, right?
Yeah, sure it is, and it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It probably gets to me, more as we head into the latter parts of a season every year. Of is this the team that can get that that other banner up on the wall, and but at the end of the day, it's we want to make sure that our program is consistent. We're consistently got a shot every year talent changes, Blair, as
Hmm.
rosters change. And some years you're just not going to have the talent maybe as somebody else in the Central Conference or somebody in your own conference. But the standard has always been the same as, we're going to work our tail off. We're going to coach you really hard, but we're going to love you even harder. And, at the end of the day, we hope that gives us a chance. And so, um, you know, pressure is only what you put on yourself, but it's also, trying to live up to something that's been a long, long history. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. One of the things I like about your teams, Brad, is they always play hard, competitive, and they play with emotion. It seems like,
Yeah.
and to me, and you coach very emotionally, but, and they reflect that, but I think that's sometimes missing from the game. We see teams just play with no emotion. It's supposed to be fun, right? But how do you balance the line between playing with too much emotion and the right amount of emotion?
Yeah. One, I appreciate you saying that. I know our players would love to, former players would love to hear that too, because I agree. I think our kids, they have a passion, they have a pride. We call it purple pride, but they do. And so, there is a fine line. You don't want to, go over the boundary of, some things, but we want our kids when they take the floor every night to play with that, with urgency and, X's and O's and all those things are important. But at the end of the day, I think in today's landscape, it's, which team is going to have more urgency, which team is going to have the will to win, which team is going to, have each other's back when things don't go well. And we talk about response all the time. How are you going to respond? Because it's inevitable that you're going to be faced with something. You're going to be faced with some adversity, whether it's foul trouble of your guys, whether it's you're just not shooting the ball well, or whatever it might be. How are you going to respond? And so we're constantly talking about, okay, this is response time. How are we going to handle it?
What's the best part about being a coach?
Relationships, 100%. Just the relationships you have with your young people, Blair, keeps me in it. When things sometimes go south as far as just your day to day or whatever's around you, that can drag you down in this business. It's the relationships. If you get rooted in those, it just drives you. It gives you a sense of I think just makes you feel good to know that you're getting invitations to your former players' weddings. You're involved in their lives after they graduate. You're going to college graduations. You're going to weddings, and you're being involved. Those are really the true paychecks. In this business, we didn't get in it. I didn't get in it at the time I did to be rich or to make a lot of money. And now, 30 plus years later, I'm still in it and I've got my own team and the relationships are still, bigger today than they ever were. And so I think that's the biggest thing.
How do you keep yourself recharged and on top of, I mean, the players are always constantly working to improve. What do you do to keep
Yeah,
yourself going and recharged and learning?
absolutely. One is surrounding yourself with a staff that, has the same belief system, but also can push you in areas. I don't want yes people on my staff. I want to hire great people and then I want to allow them to coach. And I've got a great staff. Jordan Rose, my associate head coach, has been with me for a while, and he pushes the envelope with me, his organization. Tyler McCullough, who was our head freshman coach last year, has now moved up into Spencer Brown's spot that left for a college job. AJ Killam was at Ramey, and he moved up to our freshman coach. And so all of us are pushing each other every day to learn, to find new innovative ways to be better.
Awesome. And uh, inside 30 seconds here, what excites you about this team that you have upcoming for the upcoming season?
I like our team. We're a little different. We've got a group of seniors that it's their time. They've paid they've played JV basketball. They've been a part of our program for a while, and now it's their chance. And so we got a couple of players back from our run last year.